Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 468 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How you feeling?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. We've been busy the last few weeks, man, especially myself. I've been extremely busy, and I completely forgot to mention on last week's show that it's now been 9 years doing the podcast. Of course, we started out in 2015, in September 2015, around about the 21st, something like that. We're now in October of 2024. Eddie's been doing the show with me pretty much every single week since 2020. So it's been about, 4 years and a bit, almost 5 years now. Myself and Eddie have been doing this weekly. So pretty much most of the podcast has just been myself and you, Eddie. There's been a bunch of co-hosts that were obviously around before you, and they came and went. But I'm going to probably put a tweet out or something on Twitter this week just to thank all the listeners over the years, thank all the guests over the years, and also all the co-hosts over the years, and, things like that, because obviously 9 years is a bit of a milestone. Anyway, let's carry on with the show. Like I say, let's dive straight into the review part. We're going to start here last Friday, the 27th of September at the York Hall, Bethnal Green, London. This one was live on Channel 5. Just one fight to mention over here. Thomas Essomba was defending his EBU European Bantamweight title. He's now 13-9 with a draw. Like I say, much better fighter than his record suggests. He lost a unanimous decision over 12 rounds to Charlie Edwards, former champion, now 20-1. He's on the intro every week, Charlie Edwards. It was obviously quite a close fight, I felt. I think the scorecards were probably a bit too wide for me. Obviously, Essomba does what he does. He likes to put the pressure on, come forward. But no, it was quite a decently entertaining fight. It was close. I think Charlie might have just nicked it, but again, I think the scorecards were a little bit too wide for me. I'm not entirely sure what Charlie Edwards has got left at this point. That's no knock on him, obviously. I really got a lot of time for Charlie. He's actually a top guy. I think some people, for whatever reason, jump on that kind of hate bandwagon. For whatever reason, he's actually a good guy with a good heart, and he's got a good family. I've met a few of his family members. Anyway, really nice guy. But like I say, the inactivity, I just think like Thomas Essomba is a hard night's work if you're not bang up for it, like I did say on last week's show. But at the same time, obviously Charlie's a former world level fighter. Is he still world level? I think that's a question that remains to be answered. We didn't really find that out for sure the other night, but nonetheless a decent win, I suppose. On to the next for him, but like I say, I don't know, the inactivity, I just don't think he's maybe the same fighter. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll have to wait and see. Time will certainly tell, that's for sure. Moving on now to the Park Community Arena in Sheffield, Yorkshire. United Kingdom. This one was on DAZN, by the way. Over here we saw what did we see? Jack Bateson moved to 20-1. His opponent, Rakesh Loshab, retired on his stall after 4 rounds. He was also deducted a point in the third for holding. He's now 16-5 with a draw, so a good win there for Jack Bateson. Maxie Hughes with a TKO in the 6th and final round against Eftafios Antonas, who's now 7-3 with 2 draws. Antonas down twice in that 6th and final round and TKO'd. Like I say, Maxi Hughes now 27-7 with 2 draws. Also on the card, Hughie Fury moved to 29-3, a points win for him over 8 rounds against Christian Thun, who is now 9-2. The scorecards in the end, just 1 point in it for Hughie Fury there, so a really close fight. I didn't see the fight, but like I say, it's got a lot of people scratching their heads. You know, what is going to happen with Hughie Fury? He obviously was thrown in the deep end very early on in his career. He's still quite young for a heavyweight, yet, you know, fights like this, you know, he's had a few fights like this kind of same level. I just don't think that they're really doing anything for him. He doesn't seem to be fully motivated if he's having close fights like this. Or is he just past his best, which would be a right shame, because I think he had a lot of promise at one stage, but he's lost all momentum with injuries and illnesses and things like that. All the best to him, though. Good guy. Him and his father, of course. Also on the card, Tycee Gallagher, now 9-2, a unanimous decision over 10-2s against Tori Ellis Willits, who was undefeated. She's lost her O. She's now 5-1. That one was for the Commonwealth and the WBO International Super Bantamweight titles. Willits down in the 2nd round as well in that contest. Also on the card, Shaquille Thompson moved to 13-0, a TKO for him against River Wilson Bent, now 17-5 with 2 draws. River Wilson Bent probably needs to think about, well, I don't want to say retirement, but he's clearly tried to sort of give it a good go, and domestically he's just proven time and time again he's not quite good enough. He's a brave guy. I think he'll probably fight anyone, but I think we've seen a few times now where his ceiling is, and he really gets sort of, you know, beaten by the likes of these kind of level of guys. You know, he's just no match for these kind of guys, and Shaquille Thompson at the moment hasn't quite shown that he's above, you know, British level or anything like that, you know, European level. And he's gone through River Wilson Bent there like a knife through butter. That one for the IBF European and WBO Global Middleweight titles. River Wilson Bent down in the 2nd and 3 times in the 3rd. Also on the card, a massive upset. Reese Mould is now 18-3 because he was TKO'd in the very first round against Ryan Walsh, who'd been seriously inactive. He's now 29-4 with 2 draws. Mould down 3 times in the first round. What a shock that one was. I think that was probably the most unexpected outcome, because the bookies thought Reese Mould, I think, would win on points. Then they thought that I think Reese Mould would get the stoppage. Ryan Walsh to win on points was up there, but Ryan Walsh to win by KO, it's not really something he's known for, his punching power, but yeah, he just, again, went through Reese Mould like a knife through butter, which is mad, really, because Reese Mould's coming off that controversial loss last time out to Gary Cully, and Gary Cully can certainly whack a lot harder than Ryan Walsh, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but what an upset win for Ryan Walsh, and what a way to kind of come back at this sort of level, you know. I think he's going to probably get another big fight off the back of that. Good for him. Moving now to the Lux Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Over here we saw Alicia Baumgardner defending her titles, IBF, IBO, WBC, WBO, super featherweight titles against Delphine Persoon, 49-3. It's going to go down as a no contest due to a head clash where Persoon was cut. Persoon was actually down in the first round, but in round 4 the head clash happened, and they had to stop it on the advice of the doctor, so it ended up being a no contest, and we were very close for it being too far into the fight, you know, for it to go down as a no contest. So I didn't actually see that one, but apparently Baumgardner looked pretty good for the first couple of rounds, and like I say, dropped Persoon in the first, which was a real shock, and Persoon manages to escape, I suppose, without racking up another loss, which looked quite certain at the point of the stoppage. Moving now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre in New York, USA. Again, Eddie, I don't know if you saw anything, so if you did, jump in. Bruce Carrington with a win, 13-0 now, a majority decision over 10 against Suleiman Sagawa, now 17-5 with a draw. Very, very close fight. A lot of people on social media felt Sagawa, who was a massive underdog, did enough to win the fight. It was for the NABF, the WBC Silver, and the WBO Intercontinental Featherweight titles. Elvis Rodriguez with a unanimous decision win over Kendo Castaneda. Rodriguez now 17-1 with a draw, that one over 10 rounds there. And Castaneda now 21-7. Xander Zayas moved to 20-0, a unanimous decision against Damian Sosa, now 25-3. That one for the NABF and WBO, NABO super welterweight titles. Rohan Polanco with a TKO in the 6th round. He's now 14-0. I think he's got a very bright future. He was able to stop Marcelino Nicolas Lopez, now 37-5 with a draw. And also on that card, we saw Tiger Johnson move to 14-0, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Yomar Alamo, now 22-3 with a draw. Vito Mielnicki Jr. moved to 20-1, a majority decision over 10 against Khalil El Haraz, who I think was a last-minute replacement, if I'm not mistaken, could be wrong. He's now 16-6 with a draw. And of course, the main event, Sandy Ryan, the Brit, dethroned of her WBO welterweight world title. She's now 7-2 with a draw. A majority decision victory for Michaela Mayer over 10-2s. She's now 20-2. She's the new welterweight WBO champion of the world. Again, I don't know if you saw any of this, Eddie, but I'm wondering if you didn't see the fight, maybe you saw what happened to Sandy Ryan before the fight. She was leaving her hotel, which of course was in close proximity to the venue, when a car pulled up. Someone jumped out of it and hurled a paint can, and she was covered in red paint. She, of course, is pointing the finger at Team Mayer for this. They're flat out denying anything, and it's being investigated right now by the NYPD. And it was a bit of a mad situation. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. I had no clue about that. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, if this is like some kind of, wild coincidence, I mean, but come on, man. I mean, it's kind of hard to think that it was just some weird, like a coincidence coming from, and then it had to happen to her. Why her? It could have been anybody else there. Why her? Well, who does that to a woman? Seriously, think about that first. Who would come out? And I mean, don't get me wrong, it happens.
It obviously is New York.
It is New York. But think about how often crazy things like that happen to women. It doesn't really happen as often as people would like to think. So when you start to factor in all those things, and the real side of it, of how events really play out, it makes you really wonder if that wasn't planned. It maybe not by Michaela Mayer or even maybe anybody in her direct contact or team or whatever, but maybe fans, people that wanted to see her win, maybe some family, who knows? But man, to think something like that would happen to that specific girl in New York, she's not even from there. Like, come on. I'm not saying that matters, but it's just so wild to me. That as the first I heard of it, but it definitely has a weird smell to it. Let's just say that.
Yeah, like I say, she was leaving the hotel to go to the venue, and this paint can was thrown at her. She was covered in red paint. She had to go and change and come back out. She said she was shaken. She said that I think people were posting stickers around her hotel with defamatory remarks on them, and apparently there was maybe a phone call or two from anonymous people that were threatening the team. There seemed to be a few things going on. Again, a lot of this has been denied by Team Mayer, and they're saying that they think that possibly Sandy's maybe even making some of this up. I don't know. Sandy blamed some of this though on the fact that she lost the fight. She said that she was so shaken up that she kind of didn't really have her mind in the right place. However, she did start the fight really well. She actually boxed really well in the early rounds. I think Maya did start to kind of take over as the rounds went on. In the later part, I think she did a lot of good work. I actually agreed with Maya because she didn't agree with Mark Kriegel in the ring. Mark Kriegel said that Maya started strong, and then I think maybe Sandy Ryan took over, something along those lines, whereas Michaela Mayer corrected him and said, no, I actually felt that I closed the show quite strong. That's what I agreed with. I felt that, Michaela Mayer was quite honest in her post-fight interview. But yeah, it was a close fight. It honestly could have gone either way. There's a chance that maybe Sandy might have even nicked it, to be honest with you. But I did say on last week's show, if it's close, Mayer's getting it, and that is what happened. Moving on now to the Almaty Arena in Kazakhstan. Over here, Daniyar Yelusinov returned to the ring after about 3.5 years out of it. He's now 12-0. His opponent, the Filipino Joe Noyne, retired on his store after 5 rounds, didn't come out for round 6. He's now 23-5 with 2 draws, so a good return to the ring win there for Daniyar Yelusinov in Kazakhstan. I think the main event actually fell through on that card, and he ended up, filling in the main event. He was supposed to be chief support, if I'm not mistaken. Moving now to the Patapsco Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, USA. This one went down on the Saturday night. Dusty Hernandez Harrison now 37-0 with a draw. A KO win for him in the 3rd round at light heavyweight against Darren Austin, who's now 11-2. Good stuff there for Dusty. Moving now to the final card to mention of the review part of the show. It went down at the Park Community Arena in Sheffield, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Again, there wasn't loads of quality fights last weekend, but there was a lot of different fights, in different countries, different kind of levels, all over the place. So there wasn't any fantastic cards. So again, I didn't really watch much of the undercards and stuff, more so just the main events. But Galal Yafai now 8-0, a TKO for him in the 3rd against Sergio Oliva, who's now 9-9. George Liddard with a TKO against George Davey. Liddard now 9-0. George Davey 9-2 with a draw. Davey cut over his right eye, down in the 2nd and down in the 5th. Brilliant shot that I saw Liddard catching with in one of the replays I saw online. Peter McGraw as well with a KO from a body shot in round 2 over Brad Foster. That was quite unexpected. I did think it could have been quite a hard fight, but it was over very quick. Peter McGraw 10-1, Brad Foster 15-4-2. Foster counted out from that left hook to the body in the 2nd there. What a win for Peter McGraw. And obviously the main event, again, 2 women headlining the card. Rhiannon Dixon, she was 10-0. She was undefeated. She was the WBO lightweight champion of the world. And the reason I'm talking in past tense is because Terry Harper, the big underdog, went in there and upset the apple cart once again. She's now 15-2 with 2 draws. A unanimous decision over 10-2s. Big upset. No one really expected her to win. I did say on last week's show, again, I hate to sound like some kind of philosopher, but I did say I'm intrigued to see what she's going to look like back down at 135, where she's kind of not giving away her physical advantages, because again, she probably went up too many weight classes. You can't really move from 130 to 154, and obviously she was back down at 135, and she looked good again. And in hindsight, what a terrible fight for Rhiannon Dixon. I don't think there was much need for her to really take the fight. She was looking really good up until this one here. And it's completely derailed her career, because they felt that Terry Harper was done and dusted, and it was going to be a nice scalp to beat and, and to look good, look good and I guess kind of build the brand. But yeah, Terry Harper didn't care about that, went in there and upset the odds again. I have to give a bit of credit to Steffi Ball. I'm not his biggest fan at all, by the way, but got to give him some credit there, because again, it's another week of him being in the underdog's corner and pulling off the upset win. He did it with Mr. Padley the week before on that Joshua undercard. So yeah, another upset for that stable there. So Terry Harper, champion of the world again. Would you believe it? That brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the hard-hitting British heavyweight. It is, of course, Mr. Nick Webb. Nick, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you back on, Nick, man. It's been a long time. We last spoke back in April of 2021, so 3.5 years ago now. At the time,
Wow.
You were fresh off your upset win in Gibraltar over Eric Pfeiffer. Since then,
Wow.
just the one fight. Obviously, that first round stoppage loss to Fabio Wardley. You were probably winning the round, in all honesty, until you got caught, and it was all over very quickly. Obviously, it was over 3 years ago now, Nick. But how do you look back on that one now?
Look back, I made a few little mistakes. I thought it was a bit of a premature stoppage. I wasn't hurt. I just sort of had nowhere to go, kind of thing. Sort of learnt from that, and took my time. I had to sort out other things, but I'm a better boxer for it now. So, looking forward to the next journey, the next step.
The next chapter. The $1 million question is, what have you been up to in these 3 years out, Nick?
Well, I had everything ready for boxing. So obviously the dream to be a world heavyweight champion. So I was a full-time boxer. And obviously I lost that fight, and I sort of, no sponsorship, no money. So I had to think, right, I need to get an income. So I sort of took a few courses on like mental health and things like that. So basically I could sort of help sort of kids that sort of need it, sort of help mental health and things like that. So so that's sort of the direction I went in, and now I've got a job doing that. So I've got an income, and I'm able to still box now. So that's what I've been doing, and I had my son. So I wasn't able. My missus told me you ain't boxing while I'm pregnant. So I was like, okay, that's another year delay, but but she's the boss, so that's what I did.
There we
and
go.
Now he's here. Now I stepped up the training, and I'm back on my way back. So let's do it.
Just tell me, Nick, just about that job briefly. Obviously, it must have been hard from being a full-time boxer to then go back into, more of a normal job.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're still able to do that and box. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, at the moment, definitely.
Okay.
So I sort of just wanted to boxing helped me in so many ways. Helped me to get out of being a kid fighting on the street. Just sort of, boxing in the ring and getting respect that way, and learnt me self-control. And I think, boxing can help a lot of other kids that way as well. So obviously with my my mental health and things like, and with boxing, I think it's a great thing to teach other kids that.
Oh, good on you, Nick, man. Good on you. I wanted to ask, who are you training under now?
I still kind of it's always the same kind of team that I had, but I've been doing more because I'm living down in Surrey. I'm closer to Charlie at Camberley, so I've been doing a lot more with him rather than Scott. So I've still been up to see Scott to still sharpen up the tools of what he taught me, and now I'm doing other things now as well, working with Charlie. And Charlie's helped me in a lot of ways. He's been consistent with me. And we've been up to Tyson Fury's camp. We've, I've been sparring in London. He took me to a lot of things and helped me a lot in the mental state and with my boxing. It's good.
And Nick, obviously, this 3 years where you were out, you had to get a job and the rest of it. How often were you training? Were you still going in the gym?
I think, like every boxer, I would say, we used to train in every day. So for us to, even though we're not boxing, we still have to do something because we're all mental. So I still sort of train most days, whether it was less boxing, more weights and cardio. Probably more of that. But obviously now I'm boxing again. Now I'm doing more boxing.
And I want to ask you this, and this is an interesting question really, Nick. Was there ever a time where you thought, maybe it's not going to happen, maybe I won't be back in the ring?
Yeah, to be honest with you, after the fight with Fabio, I've trained really hard for that, and afterwards my body sort of just said, you can't run now, you can't throw a punch now, you can't pick anything up with your back now. My body's literally shut down, like it was just telling me that I needed a rest. So I think and I didn't think I would be able to get back running again. I thought that was my last days running. My body just wouldn't let me. But time off, doing the right exercises, strengthening all the tools again. I'm back. So I'm back running. I'm back doing all the stuff I need to do. So yeah, so there was a point where I thought I'm done. But luckily my body didn't give up on me just yet.
And what have you been making of the whole heavyweight division in your absence as well?
It's exciting. I went to the Joshua Dubois fight. That was interesting. I didn't think it would be as one-sided as it would be. I knew it was a 50-50 fight, but yeah, I was quite shocked, really.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about that fight. I didn't know that you went to it, but what was that like to be there? Like you say, you were shocked with the outcome.
Yeah, the atmosphere was amazing. The walkouts were, send chills down your spine. It was had goosebumps. It was wicked. But yeah, the fight, I just, I wanted, I sparred with Dubois lots of times, and I'm a Joshua fan. Like, wanted him, to do to be back and do the business and get that big Tyson Fury fight. But yeah. I don't know what happened. Just wasn't his night.
No, it wasn't. You now finally do have a date, which is fantastic. Obviously, October the 18th is the date at the York Hall. You'll be boxing the undefeated 5-0 Courtney Bennett. What do we know about Courtney, Nick?
Not too much, to be honest. I've seen a few of his videos. He seems game, but you don't really know because of the caliber of opponents he's fought. So it's an unknown quantity, really. But I'm surprised he took the fight with me, with my experience. So yeah, he must have thought, I've been out too long and he can sort of take me out. So he's going to be very surprised, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that has to be why. He simply must have just thought that you've been, sitting on the couch for all this time, because I can't understand it. It almost makes no sense from his point of view. He's still undefeated, still coming up. You're both the same size in stature, and you're obviously, I would say, a much bigger puncher than he is. So yeah, it's a weird one. Yeah, all due respect to the guy, I had never actually heard of him until this fight got made. He's never boxed anyone with a winning record. But I want to ask you this as well, Nick. If worse come to worse, you were to lose this one, would that be it?
Yeah, I must say, every time you come back, it's harder. Every time you lose, you come back, it's a harder journey. Like now, I've not got any sponsorship. I'm doing it all myself, and I'm working in between it, which is new for me. which is I have new respect for all the non-full-time boxers that do, and obviously having a baby now as well. So it's a lot tougher, but just shows how much you want it more, I think.
And also, we've seen Fabio Wardley go on a heck of a run since your fight with him. However, the draw last time with Fraser Clarke, I'm sure you saw the fight. It was a good fight. The rematch is now set for not too long away now, actually. How do you see the rematch going, mate?
I don't know, I think it's going to be a tough fight for both of them. The first one was real tough. I was with Fabio today, actually. I was in the gym in London. Oh, no, Essex, Ben's gym. And I was sparring Jamie TKV, and Fabio was there to spar Jamie as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. He's definitely fit for it. So I couldn't say I like both of them. Obviously I want Fabio to do well because he's beaten me. So, you know, if someone's beaten you, you want them to do well to show why they beat you. And, yeah, and obviously I want Fraser Clarke to do really well as well because, yeah, he's shown me a lot of love in the game as well. I know of him and know him, inspired him a long, long time ago.
Okay. Well, we have kind of flown through everything I had for you, to be honest with you, Nick. Obviously, I wanted to say before we let you go, obviously it's been ages. We've missed your presence in the boxing world. I wanted for you to just close out with a little message to the listeners, but I do also just want to say, obviously you mentioned, you know, you've got no sponsors at the moment. Just tell us the details. How can, you know, a business that could listen to this interview, how can they become a sponsor?
I think best way to get in contact with me would be on Instagram. You know, the next fight's a TV fight, so, and we're on our way back up. We'll get this belt and onto the next one. But I must say, I'm more experienced now. I've learned a lot. I'm more cooler. I'm ready. I'm excited to show my boxing skill and ability off again. And obviously, you know, I've always got that ferocious power if I need it.
If you need it, there we go. On Instagram, at It's a Nick Ting. That is where you got to go to contact Nick Webb, become a sponsor, and of course you'll be, you'll be on board for this big fight that's coming up. Not too long to wait now. But listen, Nick, as always, my friend, thanks so much for your time. I'll be pulling for you on the 18th, and I hope we speak again real soon.
Thank you, man. Lovely. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part usually the news part, but there's nothing to bring you this week just yet. If anything develops from now to the end of the show, I'll mention it on the outro. Let's move on then to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here tomorrow at the Star in Sydney, in Pyrmont, New South Wales, Australia. This one's going to be going down, I would have thought, early in the morning in the UK. It'll be evening time in Australia, and it will be really early hours of the morning in the US. Anyway, a couple of fights to mention on this card. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but a lady called Miyamoto, who's 19-0, she's supposed to be boxing Ellie Scottney in a couple of weeks or so, or maybe 3 weeks, something like that. I'm sure she's boxing Ellie Scottney, but she's penciled in here to get in with Shannon O'Connell tomorrow, who's 24-7 with a draw. That's over 8-2s there. Whether or not it goes ahead, I wouldn't have thought it would have been, because she's supposed to be boxing for a world title against Scottney. So I don't know what's happening there, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. The main event's really the only fight worth mentioning. Janibek Alimkhanuly, 15-0, defending his IBF middleweight world title against the undefeated Russian based in Australia, Andrei Mikhailovich, who's 21-0. Janibek still hasn't boxed a fighter with a losing record, whereas his opponent Mikhailovich hasn't really boxed anyone of note. I mean, 13 of his 21 opponents did have winning records, but some of them winning records were such as 5-2, 15-4, 6-3, 1-0, 4-2, 5-1, things like that. So he really hasn't boxed many people at all. In terms of names, I don't know most of these guys, but the people that I do recognise are like real, proper low-level guys like Les Sherrington and Ernesto Espana's quite, I suppose, well, it's probably the best name on his resume. He stopped him in 3 rounds. So he hasn't really boxed anyone of note, to be totally honest with you. So again, a lot of people are expecting Alimkhanuly to be able to go in there and stop him quite easily. Moving now to this one, it goes down later on in the day. It's going down at the Caledonia Gladiators Arena in PlaySport, Scotland. Over here, Lee McGregor, where has he been? 13-1 with a draw. He's back here in action against Dana Polo, who's 6-3 with 2 draws. Lee McGregor coming off a win last time out, but it seems like he's kind of disappeared. I don't know who he's training with these days, but to find himself on a card in Scotland, kind of, back at home, but well away from the big bright lights and the TV cameras and stuff like that. So not sure what's going on with him. Still a good fighter, but seems like he's lost a bit of his momentum. All the best to him though. Moving now to the final card to mention. It goes down on Saturday at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. Lots and lots of Scousers on the card, obviously, because it's over there. They've got all the kind of, the guys that you'd expect to be on the undercard, like Brad Strand. Andrew Kane's on the undercard, 12-1. He's back here for the WBC International Silver Bantamweight title against Lazaro Caceres, who's 11-1. So that's 12-1 against 11-1. Could be interesting there over 10 rounds. We've got Jack Rafferty, who's 23-0, stepping in with Henry Turner in what I think, well, I was going to say he's probably going to be fight of the night, but obviously the main event has to be fight of the night. But Jack Rafferty, 23-0, I think, off the top of my head, has the most wins without a loss or a draw right now in British boxing of any active fighter, because I know that Archie Sharp got to 24-0 or 25-0, I think it was, without racking up any losses or draws, so he had the most wins in a row. And I think after losing to Ryan Garner, Jack Rafferty now has the most wins in British boxing, which is mad, because that's a right trivia question right there. If you was to say who's got the most wins without racking up a loss or a draw in British boxing right now, not many people would be able to pull Jack Rafferty's name out of the hat. But, I'm pretty sure he does hold that record now. If I'm wrong, and you can prove to me that I'm wrong, you can send in, another guy that has more wins than him in Britain right now with no losses and no draws, I'll send you out a BoxHard Podcast t-shirt for free. So there's a little quest if anyone fancies it. It's for the British, Commonwealth and WBC International Silver Super Lightweight titles. Again, I think it's a really, really good fight here, by the way. Like I say, I was going to say it's probably going to steal the show, but for me, the main event is going to be a banger, because of who's involved. But this will certainly steal the show on the undercard. I think that Jack Rafferty is still kind of building. I think he's 29 years of age now, but I kind of feel like they're building him slowly. I think he's been very careful in his step-ups. They've been sort of few and far between. Whereas Henry Turner, I think they're doing the right things with him. I've seen him progress. I think he's fighting the right kind of guys. I thought he was brilliant against Tom Farrell at York Hall. I remember being there for that one a few fights ago. And since then, he's just been building off of it. So for me, he's probably got the brighter future. I would probably edge it to him, but I've seen other people going with Jack Rafferty, so could be an interesting one there. And obviously the main event, Nick Ball, it's a non-title fight from what I understand, so apparently it's not a defense of his world title, but he's 20-0 with a draw, and he steps in with Ronnie Rios, who's 34-4. Rios has, though, been stopped in 3 of his 4 losses, though they were in the company of good fighters, of the likes of Murajon Akhmadaliev, Ray Vargas, Azat Hovhannisyan, and his other loss came early on in his career to Robinson Castellanos back in 2014, so a long time ago that. But yeah, he's mixed it, amongst some really good fighters. He was, of course, the guy as well that went in there and took Diego De La Hoya's knocked him out in 6 rounds. That was kind of where his career, I suppose, took a second run, if you like, because, prior to that, he'd kind of had a couple of chances here and there. He was kind of known as a bit of a Neely man, but then that was a great win over Diego De La Hoya. He upset the odds there and carried on winning till he stepped in with Murajon Akhmadaliev and got stopped in the final round there. In what was a good fight up to that point. So anyway, good fighter and will probably provide quite a good test for Nick Ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, Rios has got a decent height advantage here, of course. It goes without saying. But yeah, Nick Ball always in a fantastic fight. He's going to be buzzing to be fighting back in front of his home crowd after a few fights away. And yeah, I'm sure he's going to be bang up for this, and hopefully gets him out of there nice and early and can move on to what's next for him. But anyway, that brings the preview part to a close. In part 1, we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2, there was no news to bring you, so we dived straight into the preview part of the show, which I've just wrapped up. The final thing for me to do now is to come in with the outro, Eddie, which I'll do in
Just a few seconds.
Just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 468 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the hard-hitting British heavyweight, making his ring return after 3 years out, Mr. Nick Webb. All the best to him on October 18th at the York Hall in Bethnal Green. The biggest thanks of all, as always, goes to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. Thanks once again for tuning in for 9 years. It's been going now just over 9 years. All the guests in that time, it's incredible how many guests we've had on. I actually just want to bring you the stats. As far as I'm aware now, with a whole 468 episodes completed, we have brought you 720 different interviews in that time, and we've brought you 147 different world champions in that time, which is just unbelievable. I mean, like I say, the podcast has been going for a long time. A lot of podcasts come along after us and you know have fell by the wayside. A lot of podcasts have come, got a couple of decent guests on, and then realised it's very hard to keep going and keep pushing every single week. And to be doing this for 9 years is crazy, you know. Just you got to pinch yourself sometimes to actually sit there and for it to sink in. 9 years, unbelievable. So I just want to thank everyone once again for listening all over those years. All the guests, all the world champions, all the co-hosts, and of course all the listeners. Like I say once again, that is everything though from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe. And we'll see you all again, same time next week.